Welcome to Band in a Box 2023 for Mac. This is the second bootcamp video for Band in a Box 2023, where I do a deep dive into some of the new features. And in this video, I'll be looking at the new SynthMaster Player plugin that is now included with Band in a Box 2023, and I'll also be using a bunch of other new features as well. In the first one, I explored partial regeneration of real tracks and a lot of other features, and you can find a link for that in the comments below. So, SynthMaster is an award-winning synth by KV331 Audio with thousands of presets that are especially useful for modern pop, EDM, and similar genres. A lot of the sounds also use really good arpeggiator features, which we'll also check out. There are a few ways you can use these sounds. We have new MIDI SuperTracks that load specific SynthMaster sounds. There are Band in a Box styles that use them. There are also built-in presets in Band in a Box that load certain sounds. And you can just explore the plugin yourself and find sounds you like. So in this video, I'll be looking at all these different ways of using SynthMaster, and I'll also explore some other related features such as the Generate Chords feature, which is great to create a track that can then use SynthMaster pads or SynthMaster arpeggiator sounds. So first of all, I just want to start entering some chords for a song that I'll then use some SynthMaster sounds on. So I just have a blank chord chart in front of me right now. So I'm going to start entering some chords just so I have something that I can then add tracks to, including tracks that will use SynthMaster. So I'll just start entering some chords. A minor, F major 7, and there's a handy shortcut. I can just type J, and then when I hit enter, the J is a shortcut for major 7. I'll go back to A minor, and here I'll type F minor 9. I want to use some chords that have some higher extensions like 9ths and 11ths. The reason is that I'm going to use the Generate Chord Track feature a little later on, and I want to show some options where they can play those extensions or they can omit those extensions. I'm going to type P here to enter a part marker, and I'm going to type it again to enter a B part marker. These part markers are intended to show different sections of the song, and once tracks are generated, drums will always play a fill in the bar immediately before a part marker, and also the fact that it's a B part marker will mean that the drums will change the part that they're playing. And I'll enter a chord here, F sharp 7, maybe B2, and this is another chord that has extensions besides the usual 1, 3, 5, and 7. And again, I'm going to come back to this when I start using the Generate Chord Track feature. And I'll enter another F sharp 7. And then maybe here, B minor and E7. The E7 will take me back to A minor. And for these last 16 bars, I'm just going to type K, which is a shortcut for copy. And then 16, that means it's going to copy the last 16 bars. So this is a 32 bar song. I'm just going to set the master repeat here to maybe 4 times. So that means this is now going to be played through in its entirety 4 times. So before I start adding tracks, I actually wanted to use this song I entered to show you another new feature. If you're not familiar with Nashville notation, it's a way of showing a chord chart like this, but using numbers instead of letters for the roots of the chord. The benefit of Nashville notation is that if you write a chart, that chart is good for any key, whereas doing it with traditional chords, it's written completely differently in other keys. So first of all, I'm just going to switch to Nashville notation, which is something that you could do in previous versions of Band in a Box, of course. So we're in the key of C, and so since the first chord was an A minor, it's now showing as 6 minor. Now, if we actually change the key to A minor, you could consider it to be the 6 minor chord in the relative major key, but it's more accurate to call it the 1 minor chord. Now, in previous versions of Band in a Box, there was a setting that could display this as 1 minor, but that wasn't the default. And so the new feature is that that now is the default. So I'm going to change the key here to A minor, and you can see now it shows as the 1 minor chord. So again, this is something that you could do in the past, but you kind of had to search down the setting for that. Whereas now it just behaves like this automatically, and it makes a lot more sense to have it this way. But I am going to change this back to displaying as standard notation. So now I'm going to pick a style, because right now I just have ZZ Jazz, which is one of our old MIDI jazz swing styles, which I definitely don't want for this song. So there are lots of ways to enter the style picker, but a cool shortcut is to just type S as if you're entering a chord, and then enter, and that opens the style picker. All right, so this now is the style picker where you can pick from literally thousands of styles in Band in a Box. You can see this is the full list here, and it says over 10,000 items in the list. So each one of these over 10,000 styles is a unique combo of instruments playing a particular groove over a particular tempo range. So that's a lot of styles to go through, but there are easy ways to filter this list. And since right now we're talking about SynthMaster, I am going to filter it by just typing here in the text filter, SynthMaster. So you can see that's narrowed it down to show 8 items in the list. And so since one of those was the jazz swing MIDI style that I just had loaded when I started entering the chords, that means these 7 styles here all use SynthMaster in some way or another. Now, before you pick a style, obviously you're going to want to hear a little bit of how it sounds. And the easiest way to do that is just to double-click on a style. So what we were hearing there was a pre-made audio file demonstrating that particular style. But an even more useful way to sample these styles is to actually hear them being played over the chord progression I just entered. Now, this is something that you could do in previous versions of Band in a Box if you set it to do so and you used these play-stop buttons here. But we've now made it even easier to do that by double-clicking on the style itself, like I just did here. So I'm just going to change my settings so that when I double-click on the style here, it's going to play a portion of my song. So I'm going to go into Set Dialog Options. And so it's this setting here, double-click on style, plays chord sheet chords. So when I set that, then double-clicking, for example, on this picnic style, will now no longer play the pre-made demo. It will actually play the chords from my song. Now, when a style plays over a song like that, it sometimes takes several seconds to generate the entire song using that style. So I don't need to hear the whole thing, I just want to hear maybe the first few bars. And that's actually a lot faster to generate. So what I'm going to do is instead of playing the whole thing, I'll just have it play a preview, a portion, when I'm auditioning the style. And then you can set the number of bars here, and the default here is 8, but I'll change it to 4. So it's just going to play the first 4 bars. And this was already set, but change the 4-bar preview tempo to best tempo for the song. That means it will change the tempo of my song, which is currently 140 beats per minute, to a tempo that's more suitable to the style that I'm trying out. So I'll hit OK. Now I'm just going to move the style picker out of the way a little bit so I can see underneath. And now I'm going to do the same thing and double-click on Picnic again. All right, so I'm going to try a few more here in that same way. So here's subby modern funky pop. So all these ones I've sampled so far have at least one SynthMaster track in it because of the filter that I entered here. Some of them have more, but they all have at least one. For example, this last one I'm trying out here, Unbend, you can see the bass is a SynthMaster bass, and so it now has loaded that actual SynthMaster plugin, this SynthMaster synth here, but it also has real tracks, guitar, and drums, and a regular MIDI track on the piano track. So all of those sounded good to me, but I think I'm actually going to take a different approach, and I'm just going to piece together my own little band from scratch, using a bunch of tracks with SynthMaster, but also mixing them with some real drums and some real tracks. So really what I want right now in my mixer is kind of just a blank slate. So I'm actually going to pick a style that's really no style at all, and that's a metronome style. So I'm just going to filter this list by metronome. And so I'll just pick this one here, just a straight ahead metronome. All right, so I think what I want to do is I want to pick a drum style and then kind of build up the rest of the tracks around that. So we have some new reggaeton real drums, so I think I'd like to check those out and pick one of those real drum styles for this song I'm putting together. So I will go choose real drums, which opens the real drums picker. So this is similar to the style picker, but in there you pick entire ensembles, whereas here you just pick individual parts. But the filter is very similar. There are custom filters you can use here, or you can just type a text filter here. So I will type reggaeton. So again, like in the style picker, we can just double click to sample them. These won't be playing over our chord chart. We'll just be hearing a pre-made demo so we can hear what they sound like. All right, so I think I'd like to try this one out, and you can see it's got a tempo range of 85 to 150 beats per minute. All right, and I'm going to use this little button here to set the tempo and start playing. So I think I want the tempo to be around 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll just tap that. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can see it set the tempo to 97 beats per minute. And now it's playing through my chord chart here. But we don't have any other instruments, so right now all it's doing is playing drums. So now I'd like to build it up here by bringing in another track. So I'll bring in utility track 1 here. So I'm starting with the bass part. So I think I'm going to use a MIDI SuperTrack for this. And I'm going to use a MIDI SuperTrack that specifically loads a SynthMaster plugin. So first of all, I'll just click here and I will select MIDI SuperTrack for this track. Now again, like in the style picker and the real drums picker, I'm just going to type a text string here and I will type SynthMaster. So here now are all of the MIDI SuperTracks that load the SynthMaster plugin with them. So again, in the style picker, that was to pick groups of real tracks, real drums, etc. The real drums picker was to pick individual drum parts, and this is to pick individual MIDI parts. But in the case of these ones here, it will actually load the SynthMaster plugin. So again, I can double click on these to listen to a pre-made demo of that particular MIDI SuperTrack. And for all of these little demos, we are actually going to be hearing the SynthMaster sounds for these. I'm actually going to add a filter, bass SynthMaster, so it just shows me the basses, because right now that's all I'm looking for. So I think maybe I'd like to try this one here. the specific tempo of this MIDI SuperTrack is 80 beats per minute, which means it'll just have to be increased by 17 beats per minute to match our song at 97. And I think that'll be fine. So I'm going to press OK now. And now it's asking me if I want to load this SynthMaster plugin, Bass Bros. And so I will say yes. So now we have this bass here, and if I go to the plugins, we can see that it has automatically loaded the SynthMaster plugin. So now I'm just going to play a little bit of this and see what it sounds like. Yeah, I quite like that. That was a cool groove between the drums, which are playing just a very steady rhythm, and the bass, which sometimes leaves some space and then sometimes is busy. Yeah, I think that's a really good start here. I'm going to play that again, and then I'm going to show you the plugin while this is playing here. So we can see here is the current patch that's loaded. We can also see the keyboard down here shows some of the notes that are being played. And then there are also filters here that let you filter by different sound types. And other filters as well. Now, before I go any further, I want to save this song just so that I have it on my hard drive. But this is also a good time to mention another new feature, and that is autosave. All songs are now automatically saved periodically, so that if, for example, your computer crashes and you start up Band in a Box again, you still have access to all the work that you'd done before the crash happened. But nevertheless, I'm going to save it right now. There you go. So I saved the song as a reggaeton song untitled because I actually haven't come up with a song name for it, but that's what my song is currently saved as. All right, so now I want to add another track. So I'm going to bring in another one here. And I'd like this to be a SynthMaster track as well, but now I want a chording track. And to get that, I'm going to use a new feature under Edit MIDI, Generate Chord Track on this track. What this is going to do is it's just going to write very basic block chords over all of the chords that I've entered in my song here. So I'll go through all of the items in this dialog here. First of all, the channel number in this case is kind of irrelevant. Any channels that we send to SynthMaster are just going to play whatever sound happens to be loaded. So really this could be anything. I'll just leave it at 9 since it's already set to that, but it could easily be changed to 1, 2, or whatever. For velocity, all of the MIDI notes that are going to be created from this dialog will all have the same velocity. I'm just going to leave this at 90. I don't think this is going to make too much of a difference for the SynthMaster sounds, so 90 is perfectly fine. And I can always change it later. Now here, the note range to output. This shows the lowest note that it's going to use for these block chords and the highest note that it will use. And there's a little guide here indicating that middle C is 60. So then C sharp above would be 61, D would be 62, etc., etc. So for example, if I wanted this to be middle C and above, I could just enter this. There's an option for root always on the bottom. I definitely don't want to select that. This option I mentioned earlier, I'm going to start off just using basic triads and sevenths. So as I pointed out when I was entering the chords then, with this setting like this, the F minor 9 will not actually play the 9, the B2 will not actually play the 2, etc. Further in the video, I will actually set this to more complex, but I just wanted to show this setting right now. The number of ticks before the chord change to output. Now the feature itself is just going to write block chords wherever there's an actual chord change. And right now with this set to 0, it's going to put it exactly at the bar or beat line wherever the chord is. Now, depending on what kind of sound you're using, if it's something like a synth pad that has a very slow attack, it might actually be kind of nice to have the MIDI be triggered before the beat line. And so you might want to have a value here that would play it a little bit early to sort of give it a chance to swell into the chord. but I don't really know what I'm going to pick yet. So really right now for me, I just want to leave it at 0. So it'll play exactly where the chord occurs in the chart. And I don't want any kind of chords during the lead in. So I will now just press write chords. Now I'll show you what it generated here by clicking on the piano roll. So there you go. Here are all of the chords. For example, on the E7 here, it has a D, which is the 7th, an E, a G sharp, and a B. And I selected root is not always at the bottom, which is why it allowed the 7th, the D, to be at the bottom here. I'm going to scroll back a little bit and have a look at some of these other chords. The B2 chord, for example, it has a D sharp, which is the 3rd, an F sharp, which is the 5th, and the B, which is the root. But the 2 in the B2 chord would be C sharp, and that's not included, again, because of that setting. So if I was to play this right now, it would just be using the default MIDI synth to play this, probably a piano sound. And so before I play it, I want to actually load a SynthMaster sound. So before we saw loading a MIDI SuperTracks that had an associated SynthMaster sound, but now we've already got the MIDI here and I just want to load a SynthMaster sound. So I'm going to click on this track. I'll go to Select MIDI Instrument and select HiQ MIDI Patch Plugin. So this dialog includes all of our older HiQ or high quality MIDI sounds. It also includes all of the playable real tracks sounds that we added last year and then more this year as well. It also includes playable real drums, which are brand new in Band in a Box 2023. In the first bootcamp video, you can see me using some of these new playable real drums. But then this dialog can also load some specific SynthMaster sounds. So again, like I did in the other dialogues, I'll just type SynthMaster. So again, like in the other dialogues, I can just double click on some of these to hear a sample of what they're going to sound like. When I double click on it, I will first hear the instrument by itself, and then I'll hear it in the context of a full band. I'll just explain a little bit about the naming conventions in these as well. The BA or BS indicates that it's a bass sound, although even bass sounds can sound pretty cool as pads as well if you just use them in the higher register. Then there are some that are specifically pads, and you can see these are named with pad. And the ones that have AR or ARP in the title use arpeggiator features within the plugin itself. So what that means is that if Band in a Box sends the plugin just block chords played over a specific period of time, the sound is not just going to play single notes that will hold for the duration of the chord. It will use the arpeggiator features on that MIDI that's being fed to it. The end result will be very different depending on what sound is being used. In some cases, it will actually create arpeggios in the traditional meaning of the word, in that all of the notes that are being fed to it, it will stagger them and go up and down or play a particular pattern with those notes broken up rather than in a single block. With some other sounds, it might just play them in a rhythmic pattern, which isn't technically an arpeggio, but it's still using the arpeggiator features within the plugin. The upshot is that if you pick anything with AR or ARP in it, it's not just going to play what you feed it, it's going to do something interesting. And this last one that I clicked on, AR Melodic Wave, is one of those. So I think I'd like to actually try that one over these block chords. So you can see these are the block chords here that are being fed to the plugin, but clearly it's not just playing those. Let me solo this track again. And I'll show you the plugin for it as well. And you can see in the piano here, it's showing you the notes that are being played rather than just the block chords that are being input into it. So that was really cool. I quite enjoyed what it came up with there. But I did find it a little bit in your face. I think maybe if the notes were lower, it might be able to blend into the background a bit more. So I'm going to regenerate this part here. So the first thing I'll do is allow complex chords. So now we'll get the ninths on the 9 chords and the 2 chords. Now for the range, for the lower part of the range, I'm going to go down a whole octave. So subtract 12, that's 48. But I'm not going to use a whole octave. I think I'm going to set the range to only go up to G. So I believe that is 55. What that means then is any notes between A flat and B will all be discarded. And any other notes will be put into the range of this 48 to 55. So you can see already now, the low note here is at C4, so an octave below middle C. And let's have a look at some of the notes now that go along with these chords. The first chord, A minor, contains A, C, and E. Now A is outside of the range that I entered, so there is no A here. But then you can see those other notes, C and E, are present over this A minor chord. F major 7 has F, A, C, and E. So again, the A is discarded from this, but it has the C, the E, and the F. I'll skip ahead a little bit in here. Let's look at this F minor 9 chord here. So F minor 9 has F, A flat, C, and then E flat is the 7th, and then G is the 9th. So the A flat is discarded, but we then have the C, the E flat, the root, which is the F, and the 9th, which is the G. And you can hear that's kind of cool that when I click on the notes, you hear the synth itself playing just that note. And then same thing with the B2 chord here. The notes of B2 are B, C sharp, and F sharp. So the B is outside of the range, but the C sharp is there, and the F sharp is there. So I'll go back to the beginning, and let's have a listen to how this now sounds with the new notes. All right, so that sounded pretty cool to me. I would like to take a little break from SynthMaster and maybe add some real tracks and real drums. I'm loving the way these electronic instruments are sounding together, but I think adding a little bit of an organic sound to it would be really cool as well. So I'll start off with some drums. I'll bring in another utility track. I'll choose some real drums. Now this has the filter that I entered earlier to find the reggaeton real drums, but I'll change the filter and type in congas. So there are a few options here. I definitely want to pick something that's even eighths or even sixteenths, probably even sixteenths, and something that fits our tempo of 97. So this one here has a tempo range of 75 to 130 beats per minute, and it's even sixteenths, so that might be perfect. So let's hear how that sounds now in the mix. Yeah, that sounded really cool. So now maybe I'll try adding a guitar. All right, so I think I want something modern pop here. So I'll filter by modern pop guitar. So that has narrowed down the list, but there's still a lot of options here. Maybe I'll add some other filters in this area here. Maybe I will pick only ones that are even sixteenths, and with a tempo range of maybe 80 to 110 beats per minute. So that narrowed the list quite a bit. So there are these four options. I'll just listen to a sample of each of them and see what I think, if they might fit our song here. That's a really cool part, but I don't think it's necessarily suitable for this one. Also, really cool part, but let me check this one out here. Yeah, I really like that one. Let me check out this other one here. Yeah, actually both of those. I think maybe I'll add both of those. So this one here we'll put on Utility 4, which is the track I clicked on initially. And then I'll also go to Utility 5 and add this one on Utility 5. So those are both now added here. Why don't I start playback again, and I'll see how those sound in the mix. Yeah, I'm liking how that sounded. I brought them down quite a bit in the mix. You can still hear them. They're still very distinct, but I didn't want them to overpower the rest. But I'm really liking the way this whole ensemble is starting to sound now. So now I think I would like to get back to more SynthMaster, so I'll add another track. And again with this one, I will generate a chord track. And I'll go back to the initial settings of starting at middle C. Right chords. So that's this track now. So with that last chords track here, I use the high Q dialog to select a SynthMaster preset. But another way that you can load SynthMaster sounds is to just load the plugin itself and explore the sounds within the plugin. So that's what I'll do here. I'll go to plugins and I'll click here and just add KV331 Audio SynthMaster 2 Player. Now, before I start playback here, I should mention that when you load the plugin just like this, it has a default sound, this drum groove sound. And it might have some uses in some contexts, but not when Band-in-a-Box is feeding it chords. This particular sound plays drum loops along with some other sounds as well. So if you load the plugin by yourself and things are sounding really weird, this is probably why, because it's loaded this as the default. Here's what it sounds like if you were to play that. All right, so you can hear that that's not really suitable for the song here. So what I'm going to do is click here on Synth Pad. This area here has various categories, and so that narrows the list of the presets that are in this column based on what you select over there. So this is synth pads. That includes some of the arpeggiated sounds, like the ones that have arp at the beginning of them here. So I'm just going to start playback now. So I'll randomly just pick one of these to start with, and I'm going to start playback and just start changing these and see if I come up with something that I like. It could be just a straight ahead pad, or it could be another one with arpeggiator features in it as well. So playback is starting here. All right, already kind of a neat sound, but I don't think that's exactly what I'm after here right now. Not that one, I don't think. Now there are just some regular pads here, but I don't think that's exactly what I'm after either here. Now that's a kind of a cool one there. It is using arpeggiator features, but it's not technically playing arpeggios in that it's not playing like staggered chords. But it's kind of cool. I think what it's doing is it's taking the MIDI that's fed to it and playing these pulsing eighth notes and then alternating every 2 beats with the notes that it's being fed with the notes an octave higher. So that's kind of a cool part. It's a little bit loud, but if I bring that down in the mix, that might be kind of cool right there. Yeah, so I think I'm actually going to leave that one there. I'm also going to change the labels here a little bit. Where it just says chords here, I'm going to change these so it's a little more descriptive. So I'm going to change this to arpeggios. And I'll change this one to alternating chords. Now, I'm not sure what happened there with that sound, but let me just start that again here. Yeah, so I think I'm happy with that sound, and I think it's blending nicely with the others as well. But with the fact that it's doing the thing where it plays an octave higher for part of it, I think it might be more effective if I lowered the notes, like I did in the last one. Now with the previous one, I actually regenerated the whole chord track. But with this one, I'm actually going to use another new tool where you can change the octave of notes without actually regenerating anything at all. So I'll click on this track, again go to Edit MIDI, but instead of going to Generate Chord Track, I'm just going to go Adjust Octave of Notes to fit note range. So when you select this, it's kind of in 2 parts. First you enter the low end of the range, and then you enter the high end. So I don't think it needs to go down a whole octave. I think I'm going to enter 55 as the low end of my range here. And then it's automatically entered an octave above that, so I'll just hit OK for the high range there. So there you go. Now you can see that some of the notes are below middle C, some are still higher than middle C, but it's just lowered the whole thing a little bit. So let me play it again now. All right, so I think I like that a little better now. So when I loaded that last SynthMaster sound, I mentioned pads. I think it would be good to have actual pads playing in this one. So just a basic pad sound playing something kind of shimmering over the whole thing. So I'll add one more track. I'll just quickly do the same thing, generate chord track. And there we go. And I know I'm going to pick something that will be pads, so I'll just put pads here. So again, I'll load SynthMaster onto this track. I'll click the filter to filter by pads again. And this time I'll actually scroll down to where it actually has sounds that are labeled as pads. So I'll just click on the first one and I'll start playback again and do the same thing as last time. I'll just listen through a bunch of them and see if I find something that I like. All right, I think actually I like this one. Nice strings. And I mentioned shimmering before. It actually does have a little bit of a shimmering as part of the sound in there. So that's kind of cool. I don't want to have it too loud in the mix, but I think if I just bring it down, then like I said, it'll just be shimmering over the top. Now, I think the last thing I want to do with this track here that I've made is add my own little part to it. So I've got a fretless bass plugged into my audio interface here, and I was thinking of playing just a really simple little part that would go from the A minor chord to the F major 7 chord, and then the same little thing to go from the A minor to the F minor 7. Now, you have been able to record audio in the past, but now new features have been added so that you're able to monitor the input along with the effects that you have on the track that you're recording to. So I'll show you that right now. First of all, I'll add one more track here. And now if I go to the VU meter on that track, I can right click on it and I can go ARM track. Now you can see, as I'm speaking now, that it's showing up in the VU meter here. That's because this track is now armed to record. So it's showing up here, and my microphone is going through my audio interface, and it's routed to come through right on this track here. Now you'll notice that the VU meter, you can see the top part of it is showing, but kind of the bottom part underneath it there's nothing there. That's another new feature with Band in a Box 2023, and that is that all of the VU meters now show in stereo. So right now my voice is only coming into Band in a Box on the left channel because again, my microphone is plugged into channel 1 of my interface. In channel 2, I have my fretless bass here plugged in. So if I play a little bit on that, you can see that the VU meter is showing there underneath it because that's on the right channel, because it's plugged into channel 2, which is coming through on the right channel here. So I'm going to add some effects here. First of all, I'll just add some reverb here. Now you can hear my voice now has a ton of reverb on it. But it's not just those built-in plugins. Any plugin that I put on this track, I'll also be able to hear that. So for example, I'll put on some delay here. Hello, 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 echo, echo, echo. All right, so I'm going to leave this on, but I'm going to reduce it. I'm going to just take off the ARM track here, so you can still hear me now, but I'll take it off there. So there you go, and I will only have a little bit on, maybe like 25%. Okay, so again, if I arm it, now you're hearing my voice. And if I go mono left to stereo, then you can see the left channel is now going into both of them. If I go mono right to stereo, that now means that my bass is the only thing that will come through here. So if I play that, that will now be playing with those effects. All right, so I'd like to record a little part along with this. And it's not even a bass part, since there is already an actual bass track in this song. It's just a simple little melodic part to transition between these chords. So I will now press record. Check the VU meters there. And now I'll record. We hope you've enjoyed this video on SynthMaster and other new features in Band in a Box 2023. Thanks for watching and have fun.